calling all artists, both beginner and beyond. In today's tutorial, we're going to build your confidence by working small and working slow and creating these gorgeous autumn florals. Hello, my friends. My name is Shayda Campbell. Welcome to my studio. Pour that cup of tea. Get ready for some cozy core content because we're doing mixed media autumn florals and we're working tiny, one of my favorite things to do. So yeah, I love to work small because it makes things very achievable, very manageable. So grab some small paper. I'm using cold press from Arches. It's 140 pound. You can see all the info there. You definitely want 140 pound because what we're gonna do is rip it down into these tiny little pieces. And if you're using something lighter, it might buckle. You'll need a ruler to do your ripping, a little set of watercolor paints. Please take a moment to notice my gorgeous Paw Patrol Band-Aid. 2 glasses of clean water, paper towel for blotting your brush. You'll need a few brushes. I will probably do most of this with a small round brush, something like a number 6, or potentially a small filbert, also a number 6. And finally, we're gonna finish up with colored pencils. So grab some of those. Bonus points if you put them on a cute plate that you just painted yourself. That little plate in the corner is a reel if you would like to check it out on my Instagram at Shayda Campbell. So yeah, working small, I like to just pull a piece of paper off my block and then use a ruler to rip it down to approximately 4 by 6 inches. You could work a little bit smaller. Sometimes working square is kind of cute, but because I usually do an oval shape, I do find a rectangle to be best. Let's just get rid of all the scrap. We've got 2 little pieces here. They're not exactly the same size. That doesn't matter. So rip them down with the ruler, make them as straight as you can. I just think having that, nice rip deckled edge, it gives it something very special right off the bat. And then we're going to take a pencil and sketch in an oval. It can be very perfectly imperfect, does not have to be, a symmetrical oval. And then I want to start by painting a Black-Eyed Susan. Now, we actually did a Black-Eyed Susan in last week's Autumn Flowers watercolor tutorial. And we did a little mixed media last week too, didn't we? So I'm mixing a little bit of light brown with a dark yellow, like yellow ochre. It kind of looks yellow, but it's almost a light brown. And I am using the filbert brush. This is my number 6 filbert, one of my favorite brushes for painting natural petals and leaves. You can shop all of my favorite supplies in the video description. There's Amazon links there. And I'm going around in a circle with the first petals, and then you can see for the second flower, I just did a semicircle and it makes it look like a flower on an angle. As I was saying, we did paint Black-Eyed Susans in last week's video, so we're pulling on some of the stuff that we already did. Go watch that video, it's a great one. We also did mixed media and finished the flowers with markers. And this week, we're gonna do colored pencils. So we're mixing it up, and they don't look the exact same, of course, so it's kind of fun to build on the skills, that you've been working on. This time I am using a bit of olive green for my leaves mixed with just a hint of dark brown, Van Dyke brown. And then I'm using the filbert again and just trying to add a little pressure, make these really natural, messy leaf shapes. As I paint this third leaf, there's a lot of water there. If you have too much water in your brush, your paint can kind of get away from you a little, so I lifted some up. And then here I'm trying to put the stems right up to the flower without getting a bleed or a blend of color. There is a little bit of green bleeding into my yellow, so we will just lift with a damp, clean brush. Lifting is a watercolor technique, and it just means exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of like your little eraser trick. Use a damp, clean brush, press it against your mistake, and you can lift up the color. But we're gonna set that one aside. We're gonna draw another oval, so same formula, same start here. But here's where we're gonna change it up for our second little painting. We're doing 2 today. We are going to start by doing the background color. So I'm mixing white watercolor paint with a little hint of red, like a cherry red, cool red, and a little hint of brown. It's giving me, and lots of water, of course, it's giving this really nice creamy beige, just with a hint of pink. Like some people might see it as a very baby pink. To me, it looks quite beigey, a warm beige. And we're going to take take that filbert. I probably could have switched to a larger brush for this, but we're going to put down a nice wash of color and just fill in the entire oval and just work quickly while the paint is wet so we don't get any dry lines. And yeah, and then we're going to set that aside and leave it to dry so we can paint on top of it. Speaking of dry, this one is dry, so I can take a bit of dark yellow and fix up my little mistake. Although I didn't think the blending of the green and the yellow looked bad, but I just didn't want it there. And then I'm taking a nice red brown and just putting a big oval on this second flower. Then I cleaned up my palette a bit, and I'm going to mix up the color that I'm going to use for the background on this one. And I am using a mix of black and navy. Black and navy giving this very cool black. And I am just going to take my filbert. I'm going to use the filbert for now. I might switch to the round brush, just use whatever feels more natural to you. And we're going to fill in the entirety of that oval, carefully working our way around the flowers and leaves. The nice thing about the light pink is you can start with the backdrop and then do a darker flower on top. With this one, I love the idea of doing a really dark, oh shoot, I got a little bit of black right next to my brown, and you can see that is a lot more blending than I would care to have. So we're gonna fix that up. We're gonna try to lift with a brush. It wasn't working, so now we're gonna take some paper towel, and you can see cotton swabs or paper towel, they will just lift all of the media off, and then, we can let it dry. You want that to still dry completely, and then we can fix our mistake. Where was I? Yeah, if you want that beautiful dark color, and to me this dark navy just says autumn, you have to kind of go around. And actually it's great brushwork practice. I switched to a round brush at the end and just did all the detail part. We'll let that dry. We'll fix our mistakes later. This is like a lesson in lifting. And this guy is now dry, our little beige oval. So I am going to paint some rose hips on this one, and I'm using cherry red mixed with a bit of brown, mixed with a bit of magenta. I just want this really dark, rich red. I'm trying to tape down this paper so that it's not flopping all around. I just think it's more annoying for the viewer if my page keeps moving. But what I'm doing here is just starting out by painting 3 or 4 large ovals, and those of course will be the rose hips. I'm gonna go with 3 for now, and then I am going to take a nice dark brown, kind of a reddish brown, and I'm using my round brush for this, by the way, because these stems are kind of delicate, so the filbert doesn't lend itself as much to straight lines. These are not straight lines. We're trying to make them, a little bit wonky and broken, but you know what I mean, thin lines. And yeah, I'm giving some little branches at the bottom here, and I want to have leaves surrounding the nice red berries, so we're getting red and green. I'm using olive green mixed with a little bit of brown and a little bit of indigo, a little bit of navy. And we're just going to do these rounded leaves that come to a nice point. So I really think this one is all about the color palette, the red, the green with a little bit of beigey pink. I do think I want to put another rose hip in here. So you're always thinking about composition as you're painting. Do I have too much space up here at the top? Okay, do I want to put another berry or another flower? I chose another berry, and then we'll add in extra stems. We're going to put another little smaller leaf up here. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way this is going. I am trying to do a bit of lifting on the berries so that they have a bit of a highlight. It wasn't working well with the brush, so I'm just taking some paper towel. Honestly, a cotton swab would have been great for that. Okie dokie, let's bring this guy back. I need to try to paint the stamen again. It's a quick fix using a wet on dry technique, and I think that looks great. We're doing very simple today, and I think these look lovely, and we will let them dry completely. And when they are dry, we're going to move along to the colored pencil portion of this art project. So I've got them taped down, and I am using a very, very light brown, and I'm just putting some lines along each petal. So as I said, very simple. We want to create little paintings that are very cutesy, very illustrative, and I think just adding these simple details with watercolor, with colored pencil on top of the watercolor, I don't know, it adds a little sparkle, something. It looks very sort of like a child's book illustration or something. I'm going to use a dark green to just do some like very basic lines in the center of those leaves. I did a few circles on the stamen with the dark brown, and yeah, I think that one's done. Let's switch these up and move on to our rose hips. We're going to take that dark brown and put kind of a little circle, like circles that are made of little lines, if that makes sense. And that really makes those berries pop and look a lot more realistic. Then I'm taking this very, very light yellow, and this is sort of the perfect color if you have a color that's really close to white but is actually green or yellow. Use that on top of your green watercolor leaves to create veining lines that look just as they would in nature. It's a great trick, and it's very simple to do. And if you're new to watercolor, using a colored pencil in place of, going back in with your paints to create these details, it can be very confidence building because we're all comfortable with a pencil and pen in our hand. So once those veining lines are done, I'm going to use magenta and just do a little bit of coloring, a little bit of shading on these berries. You could also, if you want a dramatic shading, use purple. But I think I am all done. These were so much fun to paint. Working small, I think it's very confidence building. It doesn't seem overwhelming. We could put a little title down below, write Rose Hips or Black Eyed Susan. You start with that oval, or you start with the flowers and then do the darker color around it. You can use a fine liner at the end to, as I said, do a title or just sign and date them. But yeah, this was a really nice, relaxing project. This took me about 1 hour and I really enjoyed it, so thank you for joining me. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, head over to Patreon to check out this week's bonus content, and if you're interested in more watercolor techniques and the building blocks, head to my website where you'll find all of my e-course offerings. Right now you can use code AUTUMN to get 30% off.